Welcome to Sputnik, orbiting the world with me, George Galloway.
And me, Gayatri.
For the government and mainstream media, Windrush has sailed. Nothing further to see here. But that's very far from true for the communities affected and for the soul of the Britain. Many hoped that we are.
How it all influenced how the votes were cast on Thursday will be picked over elsewhere at length. But the Channel 4 confrontation between our first guest and a Tory MP on Windrush will last forever.
He's not just one of the founders of Grime, he's become a hero everywhere on the street, to black people and to white people who stand with them. He's a superstar and he's here with us. He's Marci Phonix. Marci, welcome to the show. Let's start with the Channel 4 confrontation. You came from nowhere. You were big on the music scene, but not really ever seen before in a political role. Mm-hmm. And that made the confrontation all the more memorable, didn't it? And as I say, it will live forever. Tell us how it happened.
It was all natural. It was natural because I was in Italy. I had a call from my manager, and he basically just said, "Look, Channel 4 want to speak to you. You need to come back." And I said, "Speak to me about what?" And he said, "About the Windrush scandal." So I said, "Okay, why do they want to speak to me? Blah blah blah." In my music, I have these messages. Everything I discuss with Windrush, a lot of these things I've been discussing since my first record, which is Riot.
I've heard that, yeah.
Yeah, since Riot, and on my wave, up to my new record, Liberty. So my messages have been in my music from day one. So when I went on the show, I wasn't going on there as like a politician. I wasn't going on there as anyone that was like, yeah, I need to be the guy to go forward and blah, 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 blah. I just went on there and just said what I thought, you know?
That's what made you recognizable to all people. They could connect to you because...
Yeah, I'm the local man. I'm the local man. That's who I am. I'm the man who, you know, you catch me walking. Where I come from is where I am. So, you know, where all my people are and the people that I represent. And
yeah, but it was an interesting confrontation because the Tory MP was himself black, of African origin, with an African name. Mm-hmm. And as you put it to him, this is about your people.
Yeah, but
why are you on the other side?
No, but George, he doesn't see it like that. He doesn't see, and it's not a case of because of race. He doesn't see blah blah blah. It's classism. So he doesn't see himself as one of us. So when I'm saying to him, mate, what are you talking about? You're actually speaking against your own people that have been deported. Mm. He doesn't see it as his people. He sees it as I'm on this side, and that's those people, and that's why he's not affected. Do you understand?
Yeah, although if you took him out of that fancy, expensive suit and put him in your gear, the same people that would have deported your grandparents would have deported him.
Let me tell you something. I said this, we've been saying this is something my uncle used to say to me all the time. He used to say, listen, man, he goes, say what you want, mixed race, black, whatever. If you have colour to your skin, when the NF come, you're on the same boat as us. So he can be there in his expensive £3,000 Italian suit and standing in front of the House of Parliament and looking like he's whatever he wants to be. But, bro, you put on a hoodie like me, your car gets pulled over as well. Exactly. You can't, you understand? You can speak to them at the time and say, I'm blah, 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 and maybe they'll let you go, maybe without search. But you still look and should really, you're taking the same way I'm taking, you know?
Now, Windrush was several years in the making. And very few political figures opposed it at the time. I was one of them. Jeremy Corbyn, memorably, was another. But perhaps Diane Abbott, most powerfully of all. She, in fact, warned 4 years ago that this is the inevitable consequence of what you are now doing. Yeah. But it seemed to have come as a surprise to quite a lot of the media, but also quite a lot of the community. People were shocked to find that after 50 years here, people were telling them to go home, as if Jamaica was their home after 50 years in London.
It doesn't make sense. It's scary because it's funny that they would say go home, but you know, these are, as we all know, everyone knows the story of what's happened with the Windrush. But these people have come in good faith.
They were asked to come.
Yeah, they were asked to come. That's the whole thing.
They were invited to come.
Your new video makes that point really well. Britain scoured the Commonwealth, asking people to come to the mother country.
If you invite me,
this nation.
If you invite me with your a birthday invitation, this is an invite. This is joyful. So I'm coming in good faith. So, for example, it's like me saying to you, George, come on, let's go and walk for 10 miles, walk with me through the desert in the hot sun. I know it's hot, but just trust me, when we get there, I'm gonna have food. When we get back, help me bring the food back. When I get back to my house with you, my family will take care of you. You have nothing to worry about, my brother. You can eat with us, stay with us, blah, blah, blah. So you come on this journey, we go, we're walking for ages, blah, 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 we're burning, we're dying. We get back, and I close the door in your face and I say, bye-bye, I'm sorry, my brother, but there's nothing I can do. And this, to me, is exactly what's happened.
That's brilliantly
but on a much bigger
described
scale.
On a huge scale.
Yeah, because you're playing with people's lives. This is not...
This fellow you confronted on Channel 4, he affected to know, or rather not to know how many people were affected, even though he could have, how shall I put it, in the pillow talk with the person in charge have known.
Yeah,
but now
serious.
we know it affected thousands of people. And it isn't over yet.
Yeah.
The media may have moved on, but the issue is not resolved yet.
But the media moving on, again, this is, as I said to you before, I'm not heavy into the politics, but I can see things for how they are. I'm the man who's with what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. So, the point is, it's the art of deflection, because sacking Amber, for example, is them saying, okay, that job's done, let's move on. So the media start to move. But there's no change. Nothing's happened. There's no change. How can you move on? I want the pressure on. I want the media on. Put the camera on. The new guy, camera on you. What's going on? What's happening? Where's our answers? What's happening? Like, you know, what have you given us? What changed? You can't just sack one person and that's it. Okay, that was done. That was her fault. Let's move on to this. Nah, I'm sorry, my friend. If I have to be in the camera every day, which wasn't my job, but if I have to be, I'll be here. Let's go.
Now, your genre of music comes from these streets. It's London. It's British.
Of course.
It's black. It's
this is British culture.
It's part of British culture, just like any other part of British culture. And as you pointed out in one of your interviews, you've got a famous brother who played as a football star for many, many teams, is remembered as a hero, but all of that would have been lost if your grandparents hadn't come here. That music, that football, the contribution made by Caribbean people in Britain is absolutely enormous.
Yeah, like with my grandfathers coming in, my grandparents coming here, all of the hardship, all of the labour, you know, you speak about my brother, this is the same people, these people that are lying to us about numbers and stuff are the same people that will be in the stand cheering, yeah, back foot, do you understand?
Yeah,
and be celebrating this man because he's either making them money or he's giving them joy when he scores a goal. But then, you know, the little guy who doesn't do much for him personally, bye-bye, you can go, you can go back. You know, it's disgusting.
So, following your confrontation on Channel 4, you must have had a lot of demand for interviews and so on. And now you got a new release of this, the Windrush release.
Yeah,
What's the song called?
It's called Liberties. Because they're taking a...
How did that come to play? So
it was a simple one. I was hurt by what happened anyway, so I had these thoughts in my brain about different music I was thinking about making. I always put it into my art. I don't usually go and speak. I usually put it into my music. And then the idea came up of Liberties, so I discussed it with my producer, we kept on going back and forth, and then over the space of 48 hours, we wrote and recorded this record. Then the next 2 days, I chopped up the video myself, because I do film myself, so this was the benefit of being able to turn it around quickly. All the messages and everything I wanted to say, I've put into this new record called Liberties, and...
it's totally fantastic.
So all that came...
It's your best, I think it's your best work yet.
Yeah.
Now, you're not a politician, but you have consciousness. That's not true of everybody. One of the most astounding, asinine things I have ever heard was this latest from Kanye West.
Kanye.
That
Kanye.
slavery
Jesus.
was a choice. Is
This
this
guy.
is this a certification of madness, or is there method in his madness?
Shall I say what I really think?
Yeah, please.
Please.
Kanye is just playing a game. It's his PR.
Really?
This is Kanye's. So as much as when I first saw it and I heard it, and people are phoning me, Marci, what do you think of this? At first I went mad. What's he saying? You can't say that, bro. But then I thought about it and I said, hold on a minute. This guy's album's dropping when? This guy's dropping his album next month. It's PR. The whole world is speaking about him. He got what he wanted. He doesn't care if we think he's mad. He don't care. He's not. He's so far away from us. People are not going to be able to see him and beat him up. This guy lives in Calabasas. It's like living in, you know, wherever in the countryside. You're not seeing this guy.
But if his album is going to come out next month, don't you think it's going to affect his
I think
album
it'll
in a bad
harm his
way?
sales.
but
actually.
it will harm his sales. But these days, everyone's streaming anyway. So as long as they will all go and listen, I wonder if he's saying any more stuff. So he's getting his streams. He's getting his messages out. He's getting his music out anyway. So his PR's done. He don't mind. This guy just got the world's attention. No one spoke about Kanye for 2 years. He says this, and the whole world's gone crazy. For you to be asking me about this, he's won. That's how he sees it. He's won. So I think he's an idiot for saying that. You can't say things like that. You're mad. But he's won. He got what he wanted, and that's what he's
And
done.
so for the same counts then for him supporting Trump then? He's
Yeah,
actually trying to get the opposite.
But also, Kanye, some of the things he thinks, he just has a problem with delivering it. Do you understand? Because when he says, oh, I love Trump and I love this,
Yeah.
I don't think he means he loves the policies that Trump has. I don't think he means that. I think it's a deeper thing. I think he loves because he sees himself in Trump. He sees that courageous, confident man who can do anything. How has Trump become the president of America? To him, he's like, wow.
Maybe
that's
I could
great.
do
he
that.
can be the next one.
He thinks it's him.
He
He
can
can
be the
do
next
that.
one.
Do you understand? So when he's saying that, the average man is not thinking how Kanye thinks. So this is not me making excuses for him. He's an idiot. But I'm just saying, I think that's what he means.
Very interesting. He's,
You
of
know?
course, from an entirely different class background, and his personal history is very different. So maybe he can be the president of the United
Kanye,
States.
I'm not happy with Kanye for what he's been doing and what he's been saying. But I also understand marketing and I understand media, and I think he's playing a game.
It's been fantastic.
Thank you,
speaking
my
to
brother.
And watching your video, and I'm certainly one of your biggest fans. Thanks
Thank you
very
very
much
much.
for
My man,
joining us
I respect
on
you.
the Sputnik.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool.
Coming up next, doing business with Russia. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Sputnik. Unlike in Germany and France, where the business community is revolting against their government's endless thirst for economic sanctions against Russia, the voices of those involved in Anglo-Russian trade are virtually still. In fact, our next guest is the only person I've ever met involved in such trade, and he's Clyde built.
He's been working in Russia since Soviet times, is fluent in the language and the culture of the largest country in the world, and whose capital is but a 4-hour flight away from London.
In fact, we could conduct this interview in Russian, but that would blow my cover. He's David Cant of Albion Overseas Limited, and he's welcome to the Sputnik. David, according to the World Bank, Russia will be the world's 4th largest economy by 2020, which is just round the corner. It is the largest country in the world. It is the largest producer of natural gas in the world. It's the 2nd largest of oil and coal. It imports hundreds of billions of pounds worth of goods. How come in Britain we seem totally unconcerned with doing business with Russia?
I think to a certain extent there's a problem with UK exporting, that we're not exporting as much as we should be. And there are reasons for that. Largely we're exporting now seems to have taken less of priority compared to previously. So we are still a relatively small bunch
You
of
mean
people.
globally? You mean the whole global export drive is poor?
Yeah, and of the export
what
community.
could possibly go wrong? We're about to leave the EU and have to trade with the rest of the world.
I know, and this is my point, that if ever we were needing to find export opportunities, this is the time. Non-EU export opportunities, dare I say.
And Russia would be, wouldn't it? an obvious part of one's oyster. So is it just the political shadow that lies over Anglo-Russian relations? Or is it prejudice on the part of either the Russian customers or the potential British exporters?
No. The Russians, whom I know, love brand UK. They absolutely love it. And also, they love the British way of doing business, where your word is your bond, you represent reliability, integrity, quality, and so on. The Russians love that.
Blimey, you should go into politics.
Well, no, thank you. But what we find is that a lot of companies, they're very restricted in the risks they're willing to take. A lot of companies are run by accountants these days. And so going out into the field and bringing that business home, that's a little bit alien to them.
But just a few months, few weeks from now, it's going to be a World Cup. I mean, Russia has invested so much in preparing the World Cup. Surely this must be a golden opportunity for Britain to tap into it.
Oh, don't get me wrong, there are UK companies involved in the World Cup.
Okay.
And there's all sorts of possibilities there. There are, translation, service sector, catering, clothing, all sorts of things. And the UK has a share. I would always say it's not as big a share as it could be. But then I would say that because this is what we've been doing for a couple of decades. We think the opportunities for doing business in Russia are immense. They're a lot bigger than the opportunities that we've taken so far. And I think the possibilities are very positive. The politics is not affecting our business yet.
The big companies are obviously there. BP is a 17% shareholder in the world's biggest oil company. Maybe the British government should bear that in mind a little bit more. Big companies are obviously going to be wherever there's business. But you mainly, don't you, try and assist small and medium-sized enterprises to get into the Russian market. Is that not a kind of too big a step for them?
Well, SMEs are about 70% of this country's GDP. And so we think that's where the growth is. And of course, the SMEs make decisions more quickly. They're more willing to get on an aircraft and bring that business home. And they're hungry for business, whereas some of the bigger PLCs can't make decisions as quickly. But, you'd be surprised that Russia isn't so difficult. Russia is different, certainly, and it's not an extension of Eastern Europe or the former Soviet Union, but there is an appetite for Western and British products and goods and services.
We see a lot of Jaguar Land Rover there. Though I've never tasted it, I understand Scotch whiskey is to the taste of some people, and a lot of those are in Russia, so we're drinking their vodka. They're drinking our Scotch whiskey. I see Burberry's on the streets of Moscow.
Yeah.
What other kind of goods and services are we selling there? Could we sell there?
We've been very good, I think, at prestige brands. You mentioned Burberry's, but there's a large number of British prestige brands which Russia enjoys very much. We are very good on food and drink, and so we've been responsible for some of those products going into Russia. But also British engineering, where, for example, if you look at the North Sea, the Russian offshore industry isn't as big as the onshore, but the technicalities are immense. The challenges are immense. And so UK has a lot to offer in terms of engineering skills. And I would say, actually, surprisingly, almost every industrial estate in the land in the UK has a company somewhere that has done something in Russia. The challenge is to get them now to focus on Russia and do it as a more proactive, planned export drive.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I was getting at in my introduction, though. In Germany, don't misunderstand me, the capitalists are revolting. They're revolting against German government sanctions on Russia because it's costing them business and business opportunities. Why do we hear nothing from British business? Why does even if they don't want to tell us, why don't they tell British ministers that this is a self-harming political atmosphere that has been created?
Well, I'm revolting. I've written to Westminster and I've explained that this toxic atmosphere that exists in the political scene at the moment is at least unhelpful. The response has been rather lamentable. They've just said, well, that's our opinion. So I think it really all needs to be upgraded. But the business community is a relatively small voice, and particularly the business exporting community and the business exporting community to Russia is a relatively small voice. But of course, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we were a little bit more proactive and get up and go, we'd be a bigger voice. But a lot of companies' get up and go has got up and gone.
I like that line. I'll use that one myself.
You're welcome.
Other countries must also be in competition for Russian orders. But we, as I said earlier, are about to leave the European Union. I believe that we'll leave the customs union and the single market, obviously, and that will enable us, indeed require us, to make individual trade arrangements, deals with other countries. It's not impossible that Britain will have a government outside of the EU and be ready to make a trade agreement with Russia. Would that, you think, be viewed with favour on the Russian side, or are they particularly angry about our politics at the moment?
A lot of the politics have riled Russia, and understandably. You know, the Minister of Defense has said the Russians could kill us in our thousands, and he said he wants the Kremlin to shut up and go away. The Foreign Secretary has suggested protests outside the Russian embassy, and all these things going. Even the head of the Select Committee on Foreign Affairs described thieves in the Kremlin. I don't think these
Did he
comments
say that?
are helpful.
Thieves in the Kremlin?
Oh, that's why I wrote to Mr. Tugendhat.
Goodness me.
It's not helpful and it's not backed up. And, you know, we know there are thieves in Westminster because that's been proven with the expenses
Yes,
scandal.
the Daily Telegraph, thank God for
But-
them, proved that.
Absolutely.
There were hundreds, actually, of thieves at Westminster.
Absolutely, but this thieves in the Kremlin, which the British government seems to feel free to state publicly, hasn't been backed up. Now, that makes for a very toxic atmosphere. So if and when we seek a trade agreement with Russia, I think we're in the back foot. And part of the reason for that is because the sanctions, in my view, has been a spectacular own goal. When I go to Moscow, as I do frequently, I'm now seeing a lot of the hotel rooms are occupied by Chinese business people, by Iranians, by Turks. There's a lot of the world that isn't the USA and isn't the European Union. The landscape is changing economically and physically. And so we're now seeing a bit of a resurgence in growth in the economy. And I know a lot of people will say, well, that starts in Moscow, perhaps St. Petersburg. Well, no doubt that's true. But if you look at, you know, the construction of stadia for the World Cup, construction of new hotels, new projects, they've got this new city of innovation called Innopolis. There is a huge amount going on. And I'm astonished that it's not getting more coverage in the Western press. Albion can help companies in lots of different ways, but mainly what we say to companies is, look, if you've got a good product or service, quality, reliability, you can back it up, after-sales service, whatever it requires, then Russia is going to be a market for you. And it just is not as difficult as people assume. People come out with the weirdest things, you know. They think climate's a problem, language is a problem, currency is a problem, payments, security. It's almost as if they think they need to tick some boxes to say Russia's a little bit too difficult, let's look at it next year, or let's wait until somebody else has this job and they can look at it. But in reality, almost every single company that I've worked with over many years has said, I wish we'd started this earlier. That's the size of the market.
It's been fascinating talking to you. I'd say you were the best person doing business in Russia that I've ever spoken with. But in fact, you're the only one. So you are the best. David Cant, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Here on the Sputnik. And now it's your turn to tell us what you think through the portals of social media. What's rattling, Gayatri?
Let's start with Windrush. Loretta says it doesn't go far enough. Theresa May is culpable for the Windrush scandal and hasn't taken proper responsibility. And what possessed Kanye West to say that slavery was a choice? based carpenter says he didn't. He said 400 years of slavery is a choice, i.e. staying in the mindset of slavery for years after its abolishment is self-defeating and a participation in your own mental enslavement. It was a brilliant point and one deliberately misconstrued by the Democrat plantation.
I don't think it was deliberately misconstrued. I can accept that maybe he meant that, but he didn't say that. And what he said is what will be judged, is being judged. I think disastrously for him. If Marci is right and it was a marketing ploy, it's going to be a spectacular fail. It's a Ratner moment for Kanye.
Let's see about that. That's all the time we've got for the tweets today.
Which, alas, means that's the end of the show.
But you can stay in touch with us on our social media, on Facebook, Sputnik on Russia Today, or on Twitter and Instagram, RT_Sputnik. It's goodbye from me, Gayatri.
And from me, George Galloway. It's been marvellous.